So guys, yeah, today I think we've got a pretty good, definitely a very informative call for you guys. We're going to talk a lot of information about a lot of different things. But mainly we're going to hit on prepping yourselves for your telesales career, when to incorporate, and I would say whether you're like brand spanking new, haven't even started, or maybe you've been on the platform for like less than a few months. I'm going to give you a bunch of tips that, here's the only way I can say this. If you'll take these tips as if they're like must do's, like stuff that you absolutely have to do, and you actually do all of them, you're going to right off the bat increase your sales and increase your income. Boom. Clean and simple. One of the things I want to mention is that something I rarely mention, and it's silly because I should say it more often, is that you should absolutely be putting 25% of your money as you're selling, 25% of that money aside for potential chargebacks and for paying your taxes. So, you guys, we're paying our own taxes, guys. You understand that you're not an employee, you're an independent agent. So keep that in mind. Now, as far as when to incorporate, my thing is, I believe you should only incorporate if you know you are 100% sure that this is the business that you're going to be in. That's the one criteria. The second is if you're on target to net at least 60,000. Because if you're netting, after lead cost, you're netting at least $60,000. By incorporating, it's going to help you come tax time. You're going to spend less money on taxes, guys. And at this point, the third criteria, I would say, if you've reached the first two, you should absolutely be using a professional accountant and not doing your own taxes. So back when I used, the people on the corner with the Liberty, Statue of Liberty costume, when I used, which one was it? H&R Block. I got audited, okay? Because those guys don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. And generally when you get audited, it's because of something that's seen that was prepared for you by the accountant. So I've been with my accountant for 25 years and I've not been audited. So make sure you have a real accountant firm, even if you have to pay something. Once you're incorporated, I would say, and you're netting at least 60K. I'm going to throw, I believe it's 10 tips for new agents. And I say new agents, even new as in you've started in the past, let's say 2 or 3 months. So first of all, most of you guys already know, those of you already selling, you need to have your product cheat sheets ready for looping. In other words, you need to have a cheat sheet ready for every carrier, every product, so that you're ready to do multiple loops based on that product, based on that carrier. When you're new, those of you who are new, again, don't worry. Again, I'm going to recommend those of you who maybe you're just starting this week or going to be starting over the next month, that you really just concentrate on like 2 to 3 carriers, really your main 2 carriers, and then a GI carrier. So that's really all you need to concentrate on selling. Yes, as time goes on, you're going to get comfortable. You're going to have situations where the client already has a product and you can replace it if you can do better. Then you're going to be shopping. Then you're going to be looking at maybe Transamerica or one of the Liberty Bankers Life, one of the other secondary carriers, secondary products. Before you start, I highly recommend doing like a daily morning warm-up. Even when I used to drive, I remember when I used to drive, 2 or 3 hours to the areas where I used to sell when I did face-to-face, I would always make a presentation in the car while I was driving, just to kind of warm myself up. So warm your voice up, go through part of the presentation, make sure that you are solid and ready to start. That's something I think it's important to do every single day. Those of you who are already doing this, try it. It actually does help. It kind of helps you shake off the dust, especially when you come off the weekend. You haven't worked for 2 days. Now it's Monday morning and you're on the phone. Bam. That way you're prepared. Make sure that you are logged into all the carriers and all the programs. Just have a bunch of windows open. Be prepared. Not all the carriers, but like your 3 main ones. At least if you think you might end up, if you think for some reason you're going to have to go with a different carrier, then I would say just make sure you can log into that carrier, the last thing you want to do is to go to do an e-app through Transamerica, which they're going to send you a code, by the way. So they're going to be like, well, you got to do this code thing and then you can log in. It's like a verification thing. Objections are good, guys. Objections are opportunities to build value and to build rapport. And that's what you're doing. Instead of building all the rapport up front like we used to do back in the day, that's when I had my little call center. That's how we did it. We would make a big presentation. We wouldn't even give it the price for like 30, 40 minutes. Objections are a good thing. We expect them. Everybody's got to think about it. Everybody's got to talk to their daughter first. So the question is, are you prepared when they say that? And do you know exactly what you're going to do when they say that? Because they are going to be saying that. They all do. They're all tire kickers. Think about it. They're 65 years old and they don't have burial insurance that they desperately need. For your first 2 months, and this is important, guys. I think this is really key. You really need to be working every Monday through Friday. And I would even say squeeze in a couple of Saturdays, maybe half-day Saturdays. By doing this, you're going to cut through the learning curve and you're going to develop a very strong work ethic and positive work habits. And to me, that's the key, because otherwise, if you're like, what you don't want to do here is the worst thing you can do. You make some calls, you work for an hour, you go take a break for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. No. Work, do the work. Pretend you were at the job doing the work. Grind it out. If you can do this for your first couple of months, you're going to get through the learning curve fast. You're going to end up being much better, and you're going to build and create that work ethic, because you got to develop it yourself. I can't force you to be on the phone. I'm not standing over anybody. That was the problem that I had with the call center, is that I was a babysitter. I had to stand over people. So you guys are independent agents. You've got to stand over yourself. You've got to make sure that you are ready. When you're brand new, those of you guys getting ready to start, and I know this is going to be a super light week. So by next week, you absolutely should have your calendar open like 10 hours per day. And I think that's how it should be for the first couple of months, because that's just going to increase all your chances for being successful. Let's say you've got, I don't know, kids to pick up at 2 o'clock. You've got a doctor's appointment one day a week, one day next week. Do not block out your calendar. Instead, just run late. I am telling you, this is like the gold. You are better off being late and running late to all your appointments than having a 2-hour window that's blocked out. Because during that 2-hour window that's blocked out, that could potentially be an appointment that could end up being your best sale of the month. And they're not setting the appointment because that time that's not available is the time that they want to speak with you. So that's why we want to open the calendar up as much as possible. Don't block out times in the middle of the day. By doing that, your cost per appointment, your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition goes up. Okay, we want those costs to stay down, and we've learned that you're just better off going late. It's not going to affect. I'm telling you, you're going to call people 2 hours late. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about you. Well, I just texted you. How did you forget about me?" So that's who we're dealing with, guys. You have about 4 to 5 seconds to make your first impression. To me, you've got to sound smooth. You've got to sound professional. That is like the bottom standard. Like if you want to be successful right from the start, you need to sound kind of smooth and professional. Yeah, your first couple of presentations are going to be a little, oh, this feels weird. This isn't natural. Shake it off, give yourself a break. That's fine. But by next week, you need to be sounding smooth and professional while you're making your presentations. So I will say, do what you have to do to get there as soon as possible. Because what you don't want to do, and unfortunately, I've seen this with people that have never done sales before. They would get on the phone and I'm listening to the recording thinking, oh man, you're in trouble. I mean, you sound nervous, you sound scared or, uncomfortable. And these people are listening to it going, what's this guy trying to sell me? He sounds really weird. That's what's going through their head. That's why they'll hang up on you. Okay. So you got to get there as soon as possible. Just work on it. Give yourself a break your first couple of days. That's the way I see it. Now, when the prospects are speaking or, they're talking, especially if they're telling you a story or sharing something about themselves that they're just kind of like giving you information, man, just listen. take advantage. This is like the gold for building rapport. That's what that is. And you can't cut them off, because I've heard recordings where the client, there's a conversation going back and forth, and the client will be talking about something. The next thing you know, the agent kind of interrupts them. And then the client's talking again later, and then the agent interrupts. So you don't want to be that guy or gal. You do not. Again, you only have 4 to 5 seconds. Once they pick up the phone, the immediate response, that first 4 to 5 seconds is super important. That is when you absolutely do not want to be fumbling around. So hey, Janet, this is Doug. I'm sorry about that. Hold on a second. I got a problem. Okay, I'm here. Psh, you're done. Trust me, you're done. Got to sound as smooth as possible. Boom, right from the start. All right. And I'm going to give you one last tip. Everybody, listen, those of you who have been doing this for less than 9 months, all of you got to trust me on this. Some of you guys are going to be like, I don't really want to do this. You need to listen to your recordings. You really need, and especially those of you who are new, this weekend, after you've made your first presentations, come Saturday and Sunday, you should be listening to your recording going, okay, is that what I want to sound like? You're going to hear stuff. You're going to go, oh, I said that. No, I don't like the way I did that. You got to change it. Listen to your recordings, correct yourself immediately. I am telling you, I've shared this story with a lot of you guys have already heard me share this story multiple times. When the first time I recorded myself and I was out in the field selling, I heard myself doing things that I was like, holy cow, that sounds terrible. And I literally changed everything overnight. And the next day, because first thing I noticed was I sounded kind of monotone and boring while I'm making this presentation. And here's what I sounded like with no emotion. So the first thing I did was I went the opposite, and that you are better off with too much excitement, too much energy. You're way better off doing it like this, because they start to feel that than just going like this and being monotone and yes, ma'am, well, here's what we're going to do. I am telling you, if you go over the top, you're better off than being too soft. So use your energy, use your excitement, use your enthusiasm. But that was what I caught myself doing. And so I wasn't selling much. I was about to quit. I've been selling at that point. We were selling mortgage protection. So I was going in the house, making the presentations. Literally by the next day, I remember going to my first presentation. I remember it. I remember where she lived. I remember I don't really remember what she looked like, but I remember exactly where she lived, a little house on a lake. And she invited me in, and I'm making my presentation. I'm using, my arms are flapping, and I'm talking to her, and she starts laughing at me. And then 30 minutes later, she hands me the check. And I was like, okay, she picked the option. She handed me the check. My next presentation, same thing. At that point, I went from being like ready to quit to being in our agency at that time. We had 2 offices. I ended up within a few weeks, I was the #1 agent. Like, I changed everything just because I heard, and they were telling me this. They were saying, Doug, you're not selling because we think you sound monotone. We think you're not doing it right. You got to have energy. You got to have enthusiasm. Just put your heart and soul into your presentations, and everything will change. When I did that, they were right. Everything changed. And I'm not saying for you guys to go crazy and flap your arms. It won't matter. They're not going to see it, right? But just whatever you do, please, again, even if you've been doing this for 2 or 3 months, listen to your recording, listen to something, listen to a recording you made last week, a presentation you made with a client, and you're going to hear yourself saying or doing something that you're going to be able to correct immediately. Those of you who are new, you're going to hear a bunch of stuff. So it's okay. Give yourself a break, but correct it. Because if you don't make the corrections, if you're talking to the client going, yes, and like I do, I know I do that a lot on these training calls. I listen to my recordings, I catch myself, and I try to fix that. If you're doing that with them, that quiet time, let's say you're pricing out the client, right? And you don't have the conversation going, you're doing the pricing, and all of a sudden it gets quiet. All the rapport you built is just going down. Every second of silence, the rapport that you've just been working on, you're suddenly losing, and it's going, and it's going to go. So you need to keep the conversation going the whole time. You're going to hear stuff like that when you listen to your recordings. Everybody does it in the beginning. And then the good agents figure out ways to, you're taught, like even when you're still filling out the application, you've already asked the medical questions, but you're going to be kind of reading it to them. Oh, let me see. Line 3. In the past 12 months, have you blah, blah, blah. I know you already told me no. So you're going to be talking to them as you're filling out the app. You have to keep the conversation going. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of that rapport that you just built. Again, listen to your recordings, everybody. I promise you. The last time I listened to one of my recordings was a few years ago. I was still in the field. I had been selling final expense face-to-face for years. I decided, all right, I'm going to record myself. So I got the smartphone in my pocket. I'm recording myself. I make a presentation. I closed the sale. And then I got in the car and I listened to it. And as I'm listening to it, I'm going, holy cow, I did that. This is after I was already a top producer. And I'm sitting there going, whoa, I can't believe I'm still doing that. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I heard myself saying something I didn't like. It wasn't clear. Like I was explaining something and it just wasn't clear. So the next that ended up being one of my best days. I fixed it immediately. I remember I go to my first appointment in Clewiston and I had to drive an hour to Okeechobee for my next appointment. And boom, that whole day, it seemed like everybody I met with took the applications because it was all fresh in my mind. And I just corrected something that I had been doing and not even realized that I was doing. Guys, that's really about it. And I'm going to open it up. Does anybody have anything that maybe they want to add or, any questions that you have? All right.
Hey, Doug, Steve DeCosta. I just had a quick question regarding kind of what you opened up about. When you do incorporation, does that mean I would have to get my licenses to fall underneath my companies, like EIN and so forth?
You do. So that's actually the easy part. So once you start with incorporating, you get yourself, first of all, you get your business name, through your state. And then you go to your state Department of Insurance. And you'll see, like in Florida, it's real easy. It shows request business license or something like that. So you just hit the request button. They're going to ask you a couple of questions and they'll approve you. It's usually like cheap. So yeah, you do need to register because now what's going to happen is you'll inadvertently have, so how do I explain this? Your agency will be on the top and then you'll be a writing agent underneath your agency. So at that point, if you wanted to recruit agents, they would be like next to you, but everybody would be under your agency. And that's where all the money comes from. And that's why the taxes are so important because everything gets paid through the agency.
Once I do that, do I need to let you know too, so it doesn't mess up on your side?
Well, yeah. So at that point, what we got to do is we got to get your agency contracted. And basically what we're doing is, and you won't have to miss a day of selling. Basically, we're going to get your agency contracted and then move you from being equal to being underneath, which is a very simple process. So yeah, you do have to let us know.
Yep. Hey, I have a question, Doug. In the first 2 weeks of sales, I was fortunate enough to get 6 sales, even with my phone number listed as spam. So we got that corrected, which is great. But now my question is what can we do to minimize NSFs for the first payment? I mean, great rapport with all these clients. They're happy. Everything's great. And then their first payment goes through and it doesn't work, or it says that they closed their checking account.
Right. Look, all you can do is the two things I would say is try to write carriers that do true Social Security billing, because most of these people, are on Social Security. So you always want to set up the draft date. You're the doctor. You tell them when you're going to set the draft date. You don't ask them when they want to. So that's one thing. Try to use the true Social Security billing carriers. The second thing I would say would be when you ask them the account number, repeat that. And to me, that's key. So you ask them, what's the checking account number? Instead of reading it back to them and saying, okay, here's what I got, say, okay, I need you to do me a favor, repeat that one more time. That's how you're going to do it. That's going to save you a lot of hassle.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome, man. Does anybody want to add to that?
Well, should we use like Better Check? I noticed that in your presentation. Is there anything that we can do to confirm that checking account exists?
And that's what Better Check is. They have, it's like a monthly fee. And, you know, if you're good at multitasking, and that's what we used to do when we had the call center, you know, we would be, while we're speaking to the client, the agent would actually be pulling up Better Check, putting the account number in, and all it says is whether the account is active or not. So yeah, I would say if you, that is one more thing you can do. Better Check does work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good enough. So once again, guys, I will be out of the office next week, so no training calls, but you'll be able to reach me. Text, call, email, all the above. I hope everybody has a great week. I know it's kind of a short week for those. Some of the agents are not going to start back up until next week, and that's fine. But for the 3 of you guys that are starting this week, just give yourself a break. Do the best you can. After you've made at least, I want to say, maybe 3 presentations, shoot me a text so that I can listen to one of your presentations and kind of give you some input. Hey guys, have an awesome week. Anybody needs anything, just reach out. Adios. Happy hunting.